So today, we're diving into what is basically a high-stakes political thriller, but it's from the 6th century BC. You've got a collapsing kingdom, a last-ditch gamble on a foreign superpower, and then there's this one lone prophet, Ezekiel, whose message just completely torpedoed everyone's hopes. We're going to break down his prophecies, his oracles, against Egypt.
All right, so try to picture this. Your capital city, Jerusalem, is totally surrounded. You've got the unstoppable Babylonian war machine, literally at the gates. Inside the city walls, food is running out, morale is just gone, rock bottom. And the end feels incredibly, terrifyingly close. There's really only one place left to look for any kind of help.
So where do they turn? Well, for the kingdom of Judah, that one last hope was the region's other big superpower, Egypt. I mean, think about it. They were the only military force on the map that had even a remote chance of standing up to the might of Babylon.
So let's really try to put ourselves in their shoes. It's 587 BC, your back is completely against the wall. What do? I mean, what's your move? For Judah's king at the time, a guy named Zedekiah, the choice seemed obvious, even if it was, the ultimate roll of the dice.
He looks south. He calls on Egypt. And get this, for one incredible, fleeting moment, it actually works. The Egyptian army mobilizes, they show up on the southern border, and it forces the Babylonians to temporarily lift the siege on Jerusalem to go deal with this new threat. Can you just imagine the sheer explosion of relief and celebration inside those city walls? People must have thought, this is it. We're saved. This is our deliverance.
But, while everyone else in Jerusalem is celebrating, the prophet Ezekiel steps forward with a message that is just stunningly different. A total buzzkill. He basically declares that this hope in Egypt isn't just a little misguided. No, it's a fatal mistake. A mistake that's going to make everything so much worse.
And he boils his whole argument down to one single powerful metaphor. He calls Egypt a staff of reed. Now this one image, this is the absolute key to understanding his whole point. And for a people who were just desperate for some good news, the implications were, well, they were devastating.
And you can see the contrast so clearly here. Judah was looking for a strong, sturdy staff to lean on, right? Something to support them. But Ezekiel sees a hollow reed from the Nile. The kind of thing that looks solid, but the second you put any weight on it, it just snaps. And what's worse, when it breaks, the sharp splinters are going to pierce the very hand that was leaning on it for help. So the message is, Egypt isn't just going to fail you. They're going to actively hurt you in the process.
And this is the crucial part, because it goes so much deeper than just bad military strategy. The actual Hebrew verb that's used here for leaning on Egypt, well, it's the same word that's used all the time in the scriptures for having faith in God, for trusting in God. So for Ezekiel, this wasn't just a political oopsie, it was a profound spiritual betrayal, a completely misplaced faith.
Okay, so to really hammer this point home, Ezekiel just unleashes some of the most vivid, unforgettable imagery in the entire Bible. He's not just going to analyze Egypt's weaknesses with a pros and cons list. Oh no, he paints this visceral, gut punch of a picture showing Egypt's arrogance and its inevitable, spectacular ruin.
First up, he calls the pharaoh a great crocodile, a huge monster lurking in the waters of the Nile. And we're not just talking about any old animal here. This image is meant to bring to mind a mythical chaos monster like Leviathan. And what's its big sin? Pure, unadulterated pride. The pharaoh actually boasts, "My Nile is my own. I made it for myself." I mean, wow. But Ezekiel's message is crystal clear. No matter how big you think that monster is, God is the master hunter who's going to drag it out of the water with hooks and leave it for dead on the sand. And then Ezekiel hits them with this rhetorical question. It's a total setup, right? He asks, "Whom are you like in your greatness?" He wants you to think about it. He wants you to acknowledge Egypt's sheer, incomparable power. I mean, seriously, is there any nation on earth that can even come close?
And that question leads right into his second great metaphor, this magnificent cosmic tree. And look, Ezekiel isn't downplaying Egypt's greatness here. He goes all in. This tree is taller than all the others. Its roots tap into those deep primordial waters. Its beauty is so profound, he says, that it was the envy of all the trees in the Garden of Eden. I mean, that's saying something. It's this perfect symbol of unmatched, seemingly eternal strength.
But here comes the twist. That very height, the thing that is the source of all its glory and power, that is also the ultimate symbol of its pride. And because of that pride, Ezekiel declares God himself is going to come and chop it down. So the very thing that made Egypt great is going to be the exact reason for its downfall.
Now, Ezekiel's prophecies weren't just, abstract warnings about some far-off future.
They had to stand up in the real world. He had a track record to defend. And this brings us to a really fascinating turn in the story where we're going to jump forward 16 years, because suddenly the prophet's own credibility is on the line.
Okay, so let's walk through this timeline because it's super important. In 587 BC, Ezekiel gives his main prophecies against Egypt. Got it. But then, almost right after, the Babylonian army gets bogged down in a totally different fight. This grueling 13-year-long siege against the super wealthy city of Tyre. They finally take the city in 573, but there's a problem. A big one. And by 571, just 2 years later, this little problem has ballooned into a full-blown crisis for Ezekiel's entire reputation.
So here was the issue. Years earlier, Ezekiel had prophesied that the Babylonian army would get to plunder Tyre's immense riches. That would be their wages for the long military campaign. But after 13 long, hard years of fighting, when the soldiers finally break through the walls, the city's treasury is empty. The wealth is just gone.
So you can imagine what happened. People started to murmur, right? They're thinking, hey, if Ezekiel was wrong about Tyre, could he also be wrong about Egypt? His credibility was hanging by a thread. But then, a new prophecy comes, and God essentially says, look, the army worked hard for me at Tyre, and they got no wages for it. So for their payment, I'm giving them the land of Egypt instead. This is just stunning. Instead of backing down or making excuses, the prophecy doubles down. It takes a potential failure and turns it into this powerful reaffirmation that, yes, the judgment on Egypt is still coming.
So, what is the final, ultimate fate for this great superpower? Well, Ezekiel's prophecies wrap up with this incredibly chilling vision of Egypt's final judgment. He basically consigns the entire nation to the graveyard of fallen empires.
Ezekiel lays out this four-step descent straight into ruin. First, it starts with a catastrophic military defeat. Then, that leads to a violent death for its armies. Third, there's the descent into the underworld, the realm of the dead. And finally, and this is the ultimate insult, Egypt isn't even given a place of honor down there. Nope, it's banished to this shameful pit reserved for the unburied and the violently slain.
And hey, they won't be alone down there. Ezekiel paints this incredible picture of the underworld as like a museum of has-been empires. He does a roll call of who's already there. Assyria, remember them? The terror of the ancient world. Elam, another huge power. All of them, now just empty memories. And Ezekiel's message is simple. Egypt, you're about to join the collection. Now, all this relentless focus on death and the underworld, I know, it might seem really morbid, but there's a really important reason for it in the structure of the book of Ezekiel. This is it. This is the final dark crescendo for all the prophecies of judgment. The story has to hit absolute rock bottom before it can finally turn toward hope.
And this quote really sums it up perfectly. There's this stark polarization between death and life. And now that these oracles against the nations are done, the book of Ezekiel is ready to make its great pivot. After all this darkness, life is finally about to take over. Which kind of leaves us with this one final thought to chew on. Ezekiel's message forced his people to look their greatest fears right in the eye, to confront the absolute failure of their biggest political and military hopes. And it raises a timeless question for all of us, really. When a people, or even a nation, discovers that its greatest hope is nothing more than a fragile reed, what is it that can rise from those ashes?